Chapter 1. Willowbrook's Silence. Willowbrook had never been this quiet. By day, the village ought to have been noisy with wagon wheels, market chatter, and Jingo's off-key songs drifting out of the square. But now the cobblestones seemed to swallow sound. Doors shut early. Shutters clicked into place before the sun even touched the roof lines. Even the fountain, which usually burbled cheerfully at the center of the square, felt muted, as if the water, too, were holding its breath. Peter stood on the lip of the fountain and stared past the rooftops to the horizon, where the evil mountain cut a black, jagged tooth against the sky. Once, that peak had been the lair of Saphire, the dragon whose shadow had scorched the valleys and frightened children into finishing their vegetables. Saphire was gone, defeated, and folded into history, but the mountain had not healed. Its slopes stayed charred and lifeless, a scar on the land. Lately, thin bands of cloud circled its crown, too low and too still to be weather. Peter didn't like the way they hung there, unblinking. A soft weight landed on his shoulder. Pepper fur faintly blue, eyes bright and clever, balanced with easy practice, and leaned in close. "Still watching it?" the rabbit asked, voice quiet so it wouldn't carry. "Feels like it's watching us," Peter murmured. "Listen." They listened. Far off, a cart creaked. A baby cried somewhere and was hushed at once. The wind slid between chimneys and died at the edge of the square. "Silence can be loud," Pepper said. One ear twitched. "Today, it's shouting." Mr. Grumpy clattered out of his shop with a ledger tucked under his arm. "Bah," he declared to no one in particular. "Trade's gone funny. People want bread and candles and no conversation. Can't even sell a proper broom without someone asking if it's protective." He sniffed and noticed Peter and Pepper. "You two loitering or guarding something?" "Just looking," Peter said. "Looking leads to thinking, and thinking leads to worry." Mr. Grumpy gruffed, but his eyes slipped to the mountain all the same. "Keep your mother's door latched." Mrs. Smelly popped her head out behind him, apron dusted with flour and hair pinned with what might have been 3 mismatched spoons. "Don't mind him," she said brightly. "He's only cross because the yeast didn't rise. Or because the clouds didn't. Or because something else didn't." She lowered her voice. "Do you think the thunder last night came from the mountain?" "There wasn't any thunder," Mr. Grumpy said. Mrs. Smelly wrinkled her nose. "Then what did we hear?" Peter didn't answer. He wasn't sure. He only knew the feeling he'd woken with, like he'd been listening to a sound too low to hear, a note pressed into his bones, the kind that made your heartbeat change without asking. Jingo breezed past in a cape that had once been velvet and was now enthusiasm. He strummed his lute. A single hesitant chord floated out and died halfway across the square. "No audience for art," he cried. "Only whispers and soup. Even my ballad of heroic household sweeping is unappreciated." "Try a ballad about staying indoors," Mr. Grumpy muttered. "Try a ballad about bread that rises," Mrs. Smelly countered, patting his cheek. At the edge of the square, Mr. Tez, the storyteller, sat on the fountain's broad stone and sketched absent circles on his knee with a finger. His great leather book lay closed beside him, a ribbon tucked at a chapter Peter had not yet heard. Mrs. Crazy Zara hovered near him, shawl wrapped tight, eyes too bright, as if she were reading a page no one else could see. Peter hesitated. He liked Mr. Tez. His stories were doors that opened when you needed them to. But today, the storyteller's gaze kept slipping toward the mountain and back again, like a needle drawn to a magnet it didn't want to find. Pepper nudged Peter's collarbone. "Ask." Peter hopped down from the fountain. "Mr. Tez?" The man looked up and smiled, the lines at the corners of his eyes deepening. "Peter? Pepper. The square is quieter without your questions." "We can fix that," Pepper offered. "Deadpan." Mr. Tez's smile faded a fraction. He tapped the leather cover of his book. "There are days when stories feel heavy," he said. "When they sit on your lap and refuse to be told." Zara's shawl whispered as she turned. "Hush," she breathed, but not to them. "It's listening." "What is?" Peter asked before he could stop himself. "The hush," Zara said, "the shape behind it. The knot sound." Her gaze unfocused toward the mountain. "Like a mouth about to open." Pepper's claws pricked through Peter's shirt. "We heard something last night," he admitted. "Not with ears." In the ribs, Mr. Tez's fingers stilled. "Then you felt it too." Peter looked from the storyteller to the shawled woman. "What is it?" The word came out smaller than he liked. Zara did not answer. She tilted her head as if listening to a distant bell. "Tonight," she whispered, "the first stitch pulls. After that, everything tugs, Zara," Mr. Tez said gently. She blinked and seemed to notice them again, offering Peter a sudden, warm smile that only made her earlier words colder. "Be home before the lamp's light," she said, "and keep a piece of iron by the door." Peter thanked them and backed away with Pepper's whiskers tickling his neck. Iron by the door. His mother kept a horseshoe hooked inside the kitchen pantry because BB, his grandmother's, wore it, kept mischief out and bread in. He did not believe in horseshoes. He believed in things he could see. And yet, "Let's go home," he told Pepper. They took the alley along the baker's wall, where the heat smelled like cinnamon and nervousness. Lisa Hearthvale, Peter's mother, was already on the stoop when they arrived, arms folded, eyes searching the lane. Relief crossed her face and tried to stay there. "There you are." She tugged Peter into a hug, then pressed a kiss to Pepper's forehead, as she had since the day a glowing rabbit made "household friend" sound like a promise. "Inside, both of you. I don't like the look of the sky." "It's the same sky," Peter said, but he went in. The kitchen felt safer by habit. The nicked table, BB's lumpy kettle, a row of jars labelled in BB's handwriting, tarragon, luck, sugar. The window gave a sliver of mountain and a vast field of cloud that had decided grey was a personality. Lisa set out bread and cheese anyway, as if food could make afternoons behave. "People are talking," she said, "about lights on the mountain. About a feeling." Pepper accepted a crumb with dignity. "We felt it." Lisa's hands paused over the knife. "Is it like before?" she asked softly. Peter understood what she didn't say aloud. Before, when dragons were more than stories. Before, when the world tipped. He shook his head. Different, quieter, sharper. BB shuffled in, hairpin skewed like a small, brave flag. "Ah," she said without preamble, "the hush before the howl." "I told Mr. R at the market. Salt the thresholds and turn the brooms bristle up so the nasty will trip." "Mother," Lisa sighed. "What?" "It never hurt anyone to make nastiness clumsy," BB winked at Peter. "And if there's nothing nasty, we'll have very tidy floors." Peter tried to smile. BB had a way of tying knots in fear until it looked like ribbon. He finished his bread and pretended the day tasted normal. Afternoon sagged into evening. Lanterns kindled early along the lane. Peter helped Lisa latch the shutters, 1, 2, 3, and tucked the horseshoe more snugly inside the pantry because there was no reason not to. Pepper hopped up to the windowsill and watched shadows lengthen. "Do you think it's Saphire again?" Peter asked quietly. Pepper didn't answer right away. "No," he said at last. "The mountain remembers her. But this feels like something older than a dragon. A sorrow that learned to walk." "Great," Peter muttered. "Walking sorrow." They played 3 rounds of BB's card game, which BB always won, possibly by magic, possibly by cheating. And when the clock chimed 8, Lisa kissed Peter's hair and sent him to wash and sleep. Peter's room smelled like soap and the old wood of the house. He climbed into bed with Pepper curled at his feet. The hush of the village pressed against the walls. Peter closed his eyes and tried to count the breaths between the tick and the tock. He must have drifted, because the next heartbeat belonged to the night. The air changed. It got heavier just enough that a person would notice if they were listening. Pepper sat up all at once, ears high. "Peter," he whispered. Peter opened his eyes. The silence had teeth now. It bit down. Something far off drew breath, and the world split on a single razor-thin note. It wasn't a scream. It was a wail that began small and climbed, 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 until his bones shook, and the glass in the window hummed, and the air itself seemed to shiver. It rolled down from the mountain, bounced across the valley, and threaded through the lanes of Willowbrook like a ribbon of ice. Pepper pressed close to Peter's arm. His glow dimmed to a cautious ember. "Hear it now?" Peter couldn't answer. His throat wouldn't choose a sound. He scrambled to the window and peeked through the sliver where the shutters didn't meet. Over the black line of the rooftops, the mountain wore a crown that was not cloud. Mist unfurled from the peak, slow and deliberate, curling downward in tendrils that moved against the wind. He forced a whisper. "It's coming from there." The wail faded, leaving a ring in the air that wasn't quite gone. In the space it left behind, the hush felt bigger. Pepper's whiskers trembled. "The village will hear it," he said. "They'll wake." Peter agreed. In the lane below, a lamp flared as someone threw open a door and then shut it again, hard. Somewhere, Jingo's lute snapped a string. Peter looked back at the bed, and then at the window, and then at Pepper. He didn't feel brave. He felt like a boy with a rabbit and a window between him and the dark. But something in his chest stood up anyway. "Tomorrow," he said, steadying his voice on the word. "We ask Mr. Tez what he knows." Pepper nodded. "Tomorrow." The house creaked, the way old houses do when they're listening. Peter slid down the wall and sat on the floor with his back to the bed. He kept his eyes on the crack of night between the shutters until they blurred. The mountain's shadow sat exactly where it had always been, only now it felt awake. Outside, the village held its breath again, as if waiting for the next note. Chapter 2. Whispers of Willowbrook. Morning broke, but the light felt wrong. The sun rose pale, half swallowed by low clouds that sagged against the rooftops. Even the birds kept quiet, darting from eave to eave, as if unsure whether to risk a song. Peter and Pepper left the house early, slipping past Lisa's worried look. The memory of the wail still clung to his bones, but he needed to see the village awake to know if others had heard it too. The square smelled of damp earth and bread left too long in the oven. Mr. Grumpy was already outside, arms folded, glaring at anyone who dared walk past his shop without buying something. A small table had been dragged to the front step, cluttered with nails, candles, and even an old horseshoe polished to a dull shine. Peter slowed. "Selling iron, Mr. Grumpy?" The old man harumphed. "Iron keeps nasties out. Everyone knows that. Business is booming, and for once, it's not Mrs. Smelly's nonsense making it so." From behind him, Mrs. Smelly popped her head out with flour on her cheeks and spoons in her hair. "It's not nonsense," she chirped. "I saw the mist creeping down the hills. It had shapes inside it, moving like dancers." "Dancers don't take people in the night," Mr. Grumpy said flatly. Mrs. Smelly looked at Pepper, lowering her voice. "You felt it, didn't you?" Pepper's ears twitched. "We did. And whatever it wasn't dancing." Mrs. Smelly shuddered and disappeared back into the shop. Peter and Pepper continued toward the fountain. The square was busier than usual, but no one lingered long. Neighbors stopped to whisper, traded anxious glances, then hurried away. Children clung to their parents, wide-eyed, silent. On the tavern steps, Mr. Inwood leaned against the doorframe, his shoulders sagging. His wife, Mrs. Butterpond, bustled around with bowls of steaming stew, pressing them into people's hands. "Eat together," she insisted. "Food binds us. Fear scatters us." Peter accepted a bowl and sat near the fountain. Pepper sniffed the steam with interest. "Troubles come again," Mr. Inwood muttered. "First the dragon, now this. Willowbrook can't seem to rest." "It won't last," Mrs. Butterpond said firmly, though her smile wavered. "The children need hope." At the schoolhouse, Ms. Windybrook was ushering students out early, her hand tight on her husband's arm. "Tracks by the door," she whispered when Peter asked. "Too large for a dog, too twisted for a man." And yet, shaped like both Pepper's glow flickered. Shadows leave footprints too. Garrick, the hunter, tightened his grip on his bow. "If this thing shows itself, I'll put an arrow through it." "Arrows won't catch mist," Pepper said softly. Near the edge of the market, Jingo strummed his lute with unusual hesitation. Normally, his music flooded the square with mismatched chords, but today, his fingers faltered. "No one listens anymore," he complained, though his voice shook. "Songs can chase away sorrow, but this sorrow bites back." He struck a sharp chord that cracked like a whip and then quickly muffled it with his palm. "Hear that echo?" "The mountain's listening." Mocking me, Peter frowned. "Maybe it's listening to all of us." At last, they reached the fountain. There sat Mr. Tez, quiet as stone, his great book resting unopened at his side. Zara stood near him, her shawl wrapped so tightly it looked like it might choke her. She wasn't speaking to anyone, only to the air. Her lips moved in quick whispers. The cry calls. The mist answers. The mountain remembers Peter crouched beside her. "Zara, what did you see?" Her eyes snapped to his, sudden and sharp. For a moment he thought she might not recognize him at all. Then her voice dropped to a hush. "The Banshee marks those it wants," she said. One cry, then another, until the village is hollow. Pepper pressed close against Peter's neck. "What do we do?" Zara's expression softened with something like pity. "You ask the stories. They will show you, but be warned, boy stories take as much as they give." Mr. Tez laid a steady hand over hers. "Enough for now," he said gently. He looked at Peter and Pepper with grave eyes. "We will speak again when you're ready to listen to what must be done." The fountain trickled. The square hummed with fearful voices. Over it all the mountain loomed, silent but not still. Peter thought of the whale, the way it had crawled under his skin. He knew Zara was right, it was only the beginning. Pepper whispered, "The village is scared, Peter. But if the Banshee chooses who to take next, no one will feel safe again." Peter tightened his fists. "Then we can't wait for safety. We have to find answers, together." They walked on, listening as Willowbrook's silence filled with whispers of what was to come. Chapter 3. vanished in the night. The news spread faster than bread rising in Mrs. Smelly's oven. 3 villagers had not returned home. Peter and Pepper hurried back into the square, drawn by the swell of voices. A crowd had gathered near the fountain, their faces pale, their words sharp with fear. Mr. Know-it-alls, who normally lectured on everything from history to how to tie a shoe properly, was shouting so fast he forgot to breathe. Vanished. Gone. 3 villagers, respectable folk, and not a trace left but footprints leading into the fog. He jabbed a finger toward the mountain. "It's the cry. I told you all banshees herald death. Death or not, they're missing," someone shouted. At the edge of the square, Wolft, the drunkard who used to be Willowbrook's best blacksmith, staggered from the tavern with a half-empty mug. His eyes were red, but not from drink alone. "I heard the wail," he said, voice rough. "It rattled the anvil in my shop." No cry should shake iron, he sank onto a barrel. "The mist wants us." It takes who it pleases, children huddled close to their parents. Normally the square would be filled with games and laughter, but today they clutched dolls and wooden swords as if play could hold back fear. A sudden mewl cut through the noise. Fluffy James, the Hearthvale family's cat, leapt onto the fountain's edge, fur bristling, tail straight as a spear. He hissed toward the mountain, back arched. Pepper's glow flickered. "Even animals feel it." BB, Peter's grandmother, appeared in her patched shawl, waving a sprig of rosemary in one hand and a ladle in the other. "Don't stand gawping like fish. Salt the doors. Chalk your windows. Keep bread rising, and nasties will go hungry." Some villagers laughed nervously, but others rushed to copy her charms. Even Mr. R, usually the loudest joker, was silent. His face twitched with words unsaid, but no joke came. Peter pushed through the crowd. "Who disappeared?" A woman near the front turned, her eyes swollen from crying. "My brother? He went to the fields last night to check the sheep and never came back." Another voice chimed in. "And the baker's apprentice." His bed was empty this morning. Pepper's ears drooped. The banshee's cry marked them. "Enough talk of death," cried Mr. Inwood from the tavern steps, though his own voice shook. "We'll find them." But even as he spoke, Zara's voice rose over the murmurs. She was staring not at the crowd, but at the mountain, her hands clutching her shawl tight. "The cry chooses," she whispered, "and the mist obeys. One gone, then another, until none remain." The villagers fell silent. The fountain bubbled weakly. Above them the evil mountain loomed, its peak swallowed in shadow. Peter clenched his fists. He couldn't stand watching Willowbrook crumble. "We can't just wait for the next cry," he said to Pepper. "We need answers. And we'll start with Mr. Tez." Pepper hopped to his shoulder, eyes hard. "Then let's move before the next soul vanishes." Together, they turned their backs on the square, leaving the villagers to their fear and heading toward the storyteller, who might hold the only key to Willowbrook's survival. Chapter 4. The Storyteller's Warning. Mr. Tez lived at the far end of Willowbrook, in a cottage that leaned so heavily on its crooked chimney that people joked the house was resting after a long story. His garden was overgrown with herbs and strange flowers that seemed to glow faintly in the shade. Children often dared each other to pluck them, but none ever had, for it was said each plant was a word from a story, and stealing them meant the tale would never end. Peter and Pepper found him in his garden, seated on a worn bench with his great leather book resting across his knees. The cover was cracked with age, the pages swollen from years of being read in firelight. Zara stood beside him, rocking on her heels, muttering words that fluttered like moths around her head. Peter hesitated at the gate. "Mr. Tez?" The storyteller looked up. His eyes were kind but heavy, shadowed by the weight of something unsaid. "Peter, Pepper," he greeted softly. "The village is buzzing like a hive struck by a stick." "You felt it too, didn't you?" Peter nodded. "The cry. And the mist. And now, people are vanishing." Mr. Tez stroked the leather book. "Banshees are not mere ghosts. They are warnings given flesh, omens that walk. Their cry does not only mourn, it marks. Once heard, it cannot be forgotten." Pepper's glow dimmed. "Then the vanishings? The cry has chosen?" Mr. Tez said simply. Peter's stomach knotted. "But why Willowbrook? Why now?" The old man flipped open his book, turning to a page filled with curling symbols and half-faded ink. "The Banshee is bound to something greater. Long ago, when the realms were young, the throne of the Ancient One was carved at the heart of the Enchanted Forest. It was said to grant power to those who sought it, but also to guard balance between life and shadow. The Banshee's cry echoes from that throne, twisted, corrupted, searching." Zara laughed suddenly, a brittle sound that made Peter flinch. She grabbed the edges of her shawl and pulled it tighter. "Balance," he says. "But the scales have tipped, and the mist is hungry." Her eyes found Peter, sharp and unblinking. One path, one throne, one sacrifice Peter's breath caught. "What do you mean?" Zara stepped closer, close enough that her breath brushed his cheek. "The cry takes until it is answered. If you go, the throne will demand a price. If you do not, the village will empty until silence is all that remains." Pepper's paws tightened on Peter's shoulder. "What kind of price?" Zara's voice softened, but her words landed like stones. "The kind that breaks hearts. The kind no boy should have to bear." Mr. Tez laid a calming hand on her arm, but she shook it off, her eyes glassy with something only she could see. Peter swallowed hard, his chest burning. He didn't understand the full weight of Zara's words, but he understood enough. If he stayed, Willowbrook would be lost. If he left, something precious might be taken from him forever. Mr. Tez closed his book with a sigh that seemed to carry centuries. "You will need courage, Peter, and wisdom. The path to the throne is not straight. It twists through riddles, creatures, and temptations that seek to turn you back. Only those who walk with clear hearts will reach it." Pepper lifted his chin, his fur shining a little brighter. "Then we'll walk it. Whatever waits, we'll face it together." Zara laughed again, but this time tears ran down her cheeks. "Together?" she echoed. "Yes. Until the end?" Peter shivered, though the garden was warm. He looked to the mountain, where clouds swirled like ink. Whatever lay ahead, Willowbrook's fate, and perhaps his own, now rested on the path into the Enchanted Forest. Chapter 5. The Prophecy of Mrs. Zara. The night stretched long and sleepless. Willowbrook's shutters were closed, doors bolted, and iron nails hammered into thresholds. But none of it kept out the weight of the silence. It sat over the village like a heavy blanket, pressing down until even the owls refused to hoot. Peter lay in bed, staring at the cracked beams of the ceiling. Beside him, Pepper shifted restlessly, glowing in soft pulses like a lantern running out of oil. The rabbit's ears twitched at every groan of the house. Peter turned onto his side. "Do you think it'll cry again tonight?" Pepper was quiet for a long time. "Yes," he said at last, "but maybe not loud enough for everyone to hear. The Banshee doesn't need to scream every time it takes." Peter shivered. His mind kept drifting back to Josie. He pictured her face, her laugh, the way she always believed in him even when he doubted himself. He remembered the last time they had stood together in the square, how she had told him he was braver than he thought. "I miss her," he whispered. "I keep wondering if she's safe. What if the Banshee's cry reached her too? What if—" Pepper hopped closer, nudging Peter's chin with his soft nose. "Josie's on her own path, Peter. She's strong, stronger than either of us sometimes. If she were here, she'd tell you to fight, not worry." "That's the problem," Peter muttered. "She always knew what to do." "I don't." "You do," Pepper insisted. His glow brightened a little. "You just don't trust yourself yet." A floorboard creaked. Peter froze, half expecting the mist to slip beneath his door. But instead, a warm light spilled into the room as the door cracked open. Lisa stood there, candle in hand, her face lined with tired worry. "You're still awake," she said softly. Peter sat up quickly. "I couldn't sleep." Lisa came in and set the candle on the windowsill. She brushed his hair back, just as she had when he was small. "None of us can, love. BB is scattering salt on the steps again, and Fluffy James keeps growling at shadows." Pepper blinked. "He's not wrong to growl." Lisa smiled faintly, though her eyes were sad. "I don't know what's coming, Peter. But I do know this. You and Josie carry something the rest of us don't. The forest, the magic it calls to you both, and it always will. Whatever happens, remember you're not alone." Peter swallowed, wanting to believe her. Before he could speak, another figure appeared in the doorway. Zara. She glided in silently, her shawl trailing on the floor as if it carried mist inside its folds. Her eyes shone too brightly, fixed not on Lisa, but on Peter. Lisa stiffened. "Zara, not tonight. The boy needs rest." But Zara shook her head. "No, he needs truth." Her voice cracked as though she had been crying. I saw it again. The throne, the mist, the choice. Peter's chest tightened. "What did you see?" Zara stepped forward, her shadow stretching across the bed. The throne carved of stone, older than Willowbrook, older than the forest itself. It rose from the ground like a wound that never closed. Around it, the mist circled, alive, pulling the warmth from the air. "And you." She pointed at Peter, then slowly at Pepper. "You stood before it, together, but only one of you left." Lisa gasped, pressing a hand to her mouth. Pepper's fur bristled, his glow flaring bright. "That doesn't mean it has to happen." "Prophecies are riddles, not rules." Zara's eyes filled with tears. "This one is no riddle. It is the story already written. If you go, the Banshee's cry will end. If you don't, the village will wither and die. But the throne always takes something in return." Peter's throat closed. "Why me? Why Pepper? Why can't it take nothing?" Zara reached out, her hand trembling as she touched his cheek. "Because the throne does not bargain, boy of Willowbrook." It balances for a moment. No one moved. Lisa turned away, shoulders shaking. Pepper pressed against Peter's arm, whispering fiercely. "We'll prove her wrong." "We'll find another way." Zara's gaze softened, her wild energy fading to sorrow. "I hope you do," she said, "for the sake of every voice still left in this village." With that, she left as silently as she had come, the candle flame guttering in her wake. Peter sat frozen, his mind whirling. He thought of Josie, of her courage, of how she would face this choice without flinching. He thought of Pepper, glowing beside him, loyal and unyielding. And he thought of Willowbrook, trembling under the weight of silence. He clenched his fists. "If the throne wants a choice," he whispered, "then I'll make one. But I won't lose everything." Pepper's glow steadied, bright and sure. "Then we'll face it together. Always together." The silence outside thickened, pressing against the windows, waiting. Chapter 6. Another night in Willowbrook. The village did not recover after the first cry. All day, Willowbrook moved like a body bruised, flinching at every sound. The square was no longer a place of laughter, but of whispers, as if the cobblestones themselves might carry news of doom. Peter and Pepper walked its lanes together. The morning air was sharp with the smell of rain, though no storm had come. Villagers huddled in doorways, speaking in voices too low to carry. At Mr. Know-it-all's house, Alistair Pendragon stood on his stoop with a book clutched in trembling hands. His voice cracked as he shouted to no one in particular. "I've read every record of the Banshee, every legend in these pages. Its cry marks the doomed. Once chosen, there is no return." He waved the book like a shield, but when Peter caught his eye, the man's face softened and he muttered, "We're running out of time." Not far away, Wolf sat slumped outside his shuttered smithy. His forge was cold, his anvil untouched. The man who once bent iron into blades now bent over a flask instead. "I hammered charms into every door," he said hoarsely. "Didn't matter." The cry still found them. He looked at Peter with hollow eyes. "If iron shakes, boy, what chance do we have?" At the tavern, Mrs. Butterpond ladled thick stew into bowls, her voice gentle as she coaxed frightened families inside. "Eat together. Fear shrinks when shared." Yet Peter noticed how her hands trembled as she stirred. Mr. Inwood stood nearby, scanning the horizon as though waiting for an enemy he couldn't see. Peter tried to smile at Mr. R., who stood on a barrel in the square. Normally, Reginald Jollyworth could summon laughter from a stone. Now he managed only a weak joke. "What's the difference between a banshee and my wife's singing?" He faltered, his voice breaking, and stepped down without finishing. The villagers didn't laugh. As the sun dipped, lanterns lit early, casting long shadows over the village. Children were ushered indoors. Salt lines and iron charms glittered in every doorway. Even Fluffy James, the Hearthvale family cat, prowled the rooftops, his golden eyes flashing like warning beacons. Peter returned home as Bibi muttered protective charms under her breath, tossing salt in looping circles. Lisa hugged him tightly at the door. "Stay close tonight," she whispered. "Something worse is coming." Night swallowed Willowbrook whole. The lanterns glowed like fragile stars, fighting against the dark. Peter sat awake with Pepper pressed close to his side, both straining to listen. The silence thickened until it felt alive. Then it came, the wail. This time it was longer, sharper, angrier. The sound split the air, rattling shutters and sending plates crashing from shelves. It slashed through the streets like an invisible blade, and the whole village seemed to shudder. A scream tore from the far end of town, brief, desperate, then silenced. Doors slammed. Windows snapped shut. The mist rolled lower from the mountain, curling into the trees like fingers reaching for the village. Pepper's fur bristled, his glow flickering. Another soul taken. Peter gripped the windowsill, staring toward the mountain, its peak shrouded in shifting fog. His throat ached with helplessness. He thought of Josie, her courage, her faith in him. He thought of the villagers, each one clinging to charms and prayers that could not hold back the cry. He thought of Zara's prophecy. One path, one throne, one sacrifice. The wail faded, leaving only silence and the ragged sound of his breathing. Peter turned to Pepper, his voice low but firm. "Tomorrow. We can't wait any longer. If we don't go, Willowbrook will vanish piece by piece until nothing is left." Pepper nodded, eyes glowing steady now. Then tomorrow, the forest. The mountain loomed against the sky, alive with mist. Willowbrook slept uneasily, but Peter did not close his eyes. His decision was made. Chapter 7. Farewell at Dawn. Dawn came slow, as if the sun itself was reluctant to lift its head over Willowbrook. A thin, pearl-grey light seeped between the shutters, and the house breathed with the small, familiar sounds of morning BB's kettle beginning to fuss, Fluffy James hopping from chair to chair with soft thuds, Lisa moving quietly so her worry wouldn't wake the walls. Peter was already dressed. He stood by the window and watched the darkness thin over the rooftops. The evil mountain crouched beyond the village like a wounded animal, wrapped in its patient wreaths of mist. Pepper sat on the sill, glowing faintly, like a lantern kept low for a traveller's sake. Lisa set a loaf of bread on the table, its crust darker than usual, as if the worry had baked into it. "You'll eat," she said, and the way she said it turned it into a promise that he would return to eat again. She sliced thick pieces, pressed one into Peter's hand and one into Pepper's paws, then tucked a heel of bread into Peter's pack, along with smoked cheese and a little jar of BB's Good Luck, which, upon sniffing, contained thyme, salt, and something BB refused to disclose. BB shuffled in with a bundle of charms twine twisted with iron nails, a sprig of rosemary bound with red thread, a pebble from the river, one side rubbed smooth by years of pockets. "For corners and crossroads," she said, tying the rosemary to Peter's packstrap. "For stubborn doors and stubborn shadows." She cupped his cheek. "Remember, salt the threshold. And mind the bargains of beautiful voices," her gaze flicked to Pepper. "And keep your rabbit close." Pepper put his paws on his hips. "He will." Fluffy James leapt to the table and headbutted Peter's wrist. The cat's purr rumbled like a tiny drum. Then, as if remembering a prior engagement, he trotted to the window and stared out toward the forest, tail flicking a warning only a cat would fully understand. They hugged in the doorway, Lisa first, breath trembling in his hair. BB next, squeezing hard enough to rattle his ribs. And finally, Fluffy James, who tolerated 3 seconds of embrace and then wriggled free with dignity. Pepper hopped to Peter's shoulder. Outside, the lane was lined with neighbours who had woken early to pretend they were out for bread. Mr. Grumpy stood with arms crossed and jaw clenched, but his eyes were wet. Mrs. Smelly waved a handkerchief embroidered with an alarming number of daisies. Mr. P, the plumber, lifted a wrench in solemn salute. Ms. Windybrook and Garrick stood hand in hand, the teacher's face pale and set, the hunter's face set and pale. Wolft hovered behind them, eyes red, his hands opening and closing as if trying to grip the shape of courage. They moved as one toward the square. The fountain's water plinked with its careful music. Mr. R climbed onto a crate and tried for a joke. "What do a hero and a loaf of bread have in common?" he called, voice shaking. "If you don't give them time to rise, they both come out flat." It wasn't much of a joke, but the villagers laughed anyway, because they loved him for trying. Jingo strummed a chord soft, steady, a thread to stitch courage into the morning. Mr. Inwood passed around small mugs of cinnamon tea. Mrs. Butterpond tucked an extra scarf around Peter's neck and pretended not to straighten the hair at his temple. At the fountain, Mr. Tez waited, staff in hand, great book under his arm. Zara stood beside him, shawl drawn close, gaze fixed on the horizon as if she could see beyond it and didn't like what waited there. Mr. Tez lifted his staff and the square quieted. "Journeys ask 2 things," he said. "That we go and that we return different." He touched Peter's shoulder, then Pepper's ear. "You go with our hope. Come back with whatever light you can carry." Zara's voice came low. The throne gives nothing freely. She met Pepper's eyes, and something like apology crossed her face. But sometimes it yields to hearts that refuse to break. Peter swallowed. He wanted to say the right words, the brave words that would anchor his mother, steady his friends, silence his own fear. None came. So he did the simplest thing. He reached for Lisa's hand and squeezed. Then he nodded to BB, to Mr. Grumpy, to Mrs. Smelly, to all of them, and turned toward the road that led beyond the last cottage and into the trees. The village fell in behind him for a dozen steps, as if Willowbrook meant to walk a little way with its boy. At the boundary stone, they stopped. Pepper's glow brightened, lighting the path just enough to show the first twist where the hedgerow gave way to shadow. Peter looked back once and saw his home as he would remember it, faces upturned, lanterns haloing tear-bright eyes, steam rising from Mrs. Butterpond's mugs. Mr. R still standing on the crate, as if he could joke the sun into shining. "We'll be all right," Peter said, not to them, but to the piece of himself that wanted to stay. Then he and Pepper stepped beyond the stone, and the forest took them in. Chapter 8. Into the Forest. The path beyond Willowbrook narrowed quickly, swallowed by towering oaks whose branches tangled together like claws. The further Peter and Pepper went, the dimmer the light became, until the forest floor was painted only in strips of pale silver where the morning sun fought through the canopy. Peter shivered, pulling his jacket tighter. "It feels colder here." Pepper hopped closer to his neck, his glow dimmed to a cautious shimmer. "Not colder, just older. The Enchanted Forest has lived 1,000 lives, and it remembers every one of them." They walked in silence, the sounds of Willowbrook fading behind them. No birds sang here. Even the wind seemed wary, slipping through the branches in hushed sighs. Peter's boots crunched on leaves that felt damp even though no rain had fallen. Each step echoed too long, as if the forest were listening. Then a voice cut through the stillness. "Few dare the forest now." "Why do you walk here, boy of Willowbrook?" Two figures emerged from the shadows, tall and impossibly graceful. The woman's hair gleamed silver white, her gown woven from threads that shimmered like starlight. The man stood beside her, broad-shouldered, his dark cloak blending with the trees. His eyes burned green, sharp as flint. "Elves?" Pepper whispered, bowing his head. Peter swallowed hard. "I am Peter, and this is Pepper. We seek the throne of the Ancient One. The Banshee has cursed my village. People are vanishing into the mist. We have to stop it." The man studied him, hand resting on the hilt of a silvered blade. "I am Turgon, protector of these woods. This is my wife, Eorwen. The throne is no place for children. Many stronger than you have fallen to its tests." Eorwen stepped closer, her gaze both kind and sorrowful. She brushed a pale hand through the air near Peter's shoulder, as though sensing the weight of his burden. "Your courage burns brightly, but even bright flames can consume themselves. The throne does not reward it," demands Peter clenched his fists. "If I don't go, Willowbrook will die." "I can't let that happen." Turgon's stern face softened slightly. "Then walk carefully. This forest is alive with teeth. Every step will test your worth." The elves melted back into the trees, their voices fading into whispers. For a moment, Peter thought he saw faint green eyes watching from the branches. Then they were gone. He and Pepper pressed on. The path twisted into a stream, its water black as ink. The air grew damp, and the smell of mildew clung to their clothes. As they rounded a bend, a crunching sound froze them in place. Crunch, crunch, crunch. On a mossy rock sat a hulking figure, Mrs. Basher, the troll. Her skin was grey as stone, slick with damp, her hair hanging in thick ropes. In her enormous hands, she clutched a loaf of bread bigger than Pepper, and each bite echoed like bone breaking. Her eyes lifted, glowing yellow in the gloom. "Well, well," she rumbled. "What's this?" A skinny boy and his glowing rabbit. Crunchy bones, chewy fur. A fine snack. Peter's mouth went dry. We're not food," Mrs. Basher laughed, the sound like rocks grinding together. "Everything's food, boy. The forest eats, the mist eats, the throne eats most of all. You think it gives?" "Number. It takes. It always takes," Pepper bristled, ears flat. "If you're going to eat us, why warn us?" Her smile widened, showing teeth sharp as broken stone. "Because it's more fun when the meal walks itself to the table. Saves me the trouble." Peter stepped back, his boots skidding on wet moss. Mrs. Basher tore another bite from her loaf, crumbs tumbling down her chin. "The easy paths are traps. The pretty voices hide teeth. And if you hear singing when no mouth is moving..." Her gaze gleamed. "Run. Run fast." She leaned closer, her breath sour with river water. "But maybe running won't help you at all." Peter's heart hammered. "Come on, Pepper," he whispered, tugging him away. Mrs. Basher laughed again, low and cruel, and stuffed the last of the bread into her mouth. The sound of her chewing followed them down the path until it melted into silence, heavier than before. Pepper whispered, "I don't like her." "Neither do I," Peter admitted. He glanced over his shoulder, but the rock was empty. Mrs. Basher was gone, as though she had never been there at all. And somehow, that was worse. Chapter 9. The Siren's Song. The path led into a grove of willows, their branches drooping like curtains, trailing across a pool of black water. Mist rose from its surface, smelling faintly of lilies that had rotted in shadow. Peter slowed. "Do you hear that?" It began as a hum, then split into 3 voices, soft, sweet, perfectly woven. They called him forward, every note tugging at his heart. Lysandra, silver eyes. "Come, child, lay your burden down, rest your head, no need to frown." Elandra, blue eyes. "The night is kind, the water deep. We'll guard your dreams, we'll sing you sleep." Morwenna, green eyes. "Step closer now, don't turn away. Your fears will die if you obey." At the pool's edge stood 3 women, pale as moonlight. Their gowns shimmered like mist, hair floating as if underwater. Their eyes glowed, one silver, one blue, one green. "The Coralope," Pepper whispered, ears flat. "Sirens. Don't listen." But Peter's breath caught when Lysandra raised her hands, her silver eyes shining. "I am Lysandra. Look, Peter, your mother waits within the water. And your sister. Josie." The pool rippled. Lisa smiled up at him. Josie ran forward, arms open. "Peter, come home. You don't need to fight anymore." Peter stepped forward, trembling. Elandra's voice wove around him like silk. "I am Elandra. Forget the mountain. Forget the throne. No more fear. No more sorrow. Only peace. Stay here, where nothing can hurt you again." Peter's chest loosened, his burden slipping away. He needed to believe her. Then Morwenna laughed. Her green eyes gleamed, her teeth sharp as glass. "I am Morwenna, and I sing no lies. The throne will eat you, boy. The mist will hollow you out. But better us than that. At least we'll make a song of your soul." The water boiled. Faces writhed beneath the surface, screaming silently. Pepper bit Peter's sleeve. "Peter, think of Willowbrook, the people disappearing. This isn't real." Lisa's smile dissolved. Josie's arms turned to mist. Lysandra hissed, her silver gaze narrowing. The sisters' harmony turned jagged, their song swelling with hunger. Lysandra: "Foolish boy, your hope is thin." Elandra: "The throne will take. You cannot win." Morwenna: "Step to us, and you will see. Your soul will join our melody." From the shadows crept Mr. Charbaz, the goblin. His hunched back dripped with slime, and in his claws he clutched twitching dolls, their painted eyes glowing faintly. He grinned. "The sirens sing? I gather the children. A fair trade, don't you think?" Peter's blood froze. "You took them!" "The missing ones from Willowbrook." Charbaz cackled, shaking the dolls. "Only those who answered the song. Soon the rest will come. Perhaps you too." The sisters sang louder, their voices clashing with Charbaz's laughter. The dolls writhed, their painted mouths opening and closing in silent cries. Pepper's glow flared blinding blue. "We're not staying!" he shouted. The Coralope shrieked, clutching their faces as the light cut through their song. Charbaz cursed, clutching his dolls, and vanished into the mist. The grove fell silent. The water smoothed over, though the faint echo of the song lingered. Peter gasped for breath, his chest aching. "If you hadn't been here," Pepper nuzzled him. "That's why I'm here. To remind you what's real." They staggered back to the path. Behind them, 3 voices whispered faintly through the willows, soft as rustling leaves. "We'll be waiting, Peter." Waiting. Chapter 10. The Tavern in the Trees. Night folded thick over the forest by the time Peter and Pepper saw the glow. Lanterns swung crookedly on low branches, their flames guttering green, their light more like sickness than safety. The building beneath them sagged as though it had grown out of the earth and been forgotten. Peter hesitated. "A tavern? Out here?" Pepper twitched his whiskers. "If it looks friendly, it isn't." The door creaked open with a sound like a groan. Inside, the tavern smelled of smoke, damp moss, and something sharper like iron shavings left too long in rainwater. The room swarmed with gremlins, small as stools, sharp-eyed and rowdy. Their beards were their pride, braided into ropes, nests, and elaborate tangles decorated with beads, teeth, and bells. A booming laugh rose from behind the bar. A gremlin with 3 thick braids down his chest, each tied with fruit pits, raised a frothing mug. "New faces? Welcome to wisdom, woe, and wobbling stools. I'm Snes Goostic, master of riddles, drink, and occasionally the floorboards. What's your business, boy?" Peter swallowed. "We're passing through. We seek the throne of the Ancient One." The tavern went still. Dozens of eyes turned on him. Then laughter exploded wild, cackling, sharp as glass breaking. "Another seeker!" one howled. "Another fool!" another sang. "Another snack!" a third hissed. Pepper bristled. "I don't like the way they said that." Sneeze slammed a mug on the bar, ale spilling across the wood. "3 riddles!" he bellowed. "Answer, and the forest opens its next path. Fail, and the forest shuts its mouth and swallows you whole." The crowd roared, "Riddles! Riddles! Riddles!" A gremlin with a beard braided with tiny bones climbed onto the table, grinning with jagged teeth. "I am Braxel Thorn Braid," he croaked. "Answer me this. I fly without wings. I cry without eyes. Wherever I go, darkness follows." What am I? Peter thought hard. He remembered stories of clouds rolling across the moon. "A cloud," he said. The tavern erupted, half-cheered, half-booed. Braxel snarled but hopped down, grudgingly impressed. From the rafters, a gremlin with braids jingling with little bells swung upside down, eyes gleaming. "Crixabel Braid," she announced, voice shrill as a fiddle. I am taken from a mine and shut in a wooden case from which I am never released, yet I am used by all. What am I? Peter frowned. He almost said coal, but then thought of pencils, of Lisa's chalk writing on the hearth. Graphite, pencil lead. Crixa clapped, her bells jangling. The crowd stomped, mugs sloshing foam. The third gremlin slunk forward, tall for his kind, with a beard woven fine as spider silk. His smile was thin and hungry. "Varn spider silk," he hissed. "The more you take, the more you leave behind." "What are they?" Pepper's glow brightened. "Footsteps," he said, stamping one paw. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the tavern roared approval, louder than before. Gremlins hoisted Peter and Pepper into the air, mugs clanged, and songs broke out in chaotic rhythm. Sneeze leaned across the bar, his grin sharp. "You've got wits enough not to die here yet. So hear this. When the forest offers you an easy road, spit on it and walk the hard one. When laughter comes from no mouths, turn left. When the ground hums like a plucked string, stop and look up. That's where you'll find your next test." Peter frowned. "That's not much of a map." "It's better," Sneeze said. "It's a warning." As the noise died, an elder gremlin shuffled from the shadows. Her beard was braided into a crown, heavy with beads that glittered like captured stars. Her eyes were pale and clouded, but her presence hushed the room. "I am Elder Mer Braidsong," she said, her voice low and melodic. She pressed a small brass token into Peter's palmar spiral, etched deep into the metal. It was cool, but pulsed faintly, like it had a heartbeat of its own. "This is for bargains. When a voice offers everything, give it this. The voice will not take it. Then you'll know the price is false." Peter tucked it into his pocket, unsettled. "Why help us?" The elder smiled without warmth. "Because even we tire of easy prey. We want to see how far you'll get." The tavern roared again, wild and mocking, as Peter and Pepper slipped back into the night. The green lanterns guttered behind them, and the forest's silence closed in like jaws. Pepper muttered, "Bad company indeed." Peter gripped the spiral token in his pocket, its carved grooves pressed against his skin, a reminder that riddles were the least of the forest's dangers. Chapter 11. Two Moons Cove and the Dark Minotaur. The trees thinned to a barren hollow, where the moonlight bled across black water. Two pale moons hung in the sky, their reflections trembling on the surface of the pool. Mist slithered low across the ground, curling around Peter's boots like it meant to drag him under. "This is wrong," Pepper whispered. His glow shrank. "Water shouldn't look like it wants to swallow you." The surface broke. A scaled snout rose first, then a mouth crammed with teeth as long as Peter's hand. A crocodile the size of a boat dragged itself onto the bank, its belly scraping mud, its tail gouging trenches behind it. Its eyes gleamed molten gold, unblinking. It grinned. "I smell fear. Sweet." Tender, the voice was wet and heavy, like stones sinking in the river. "I am Mr. Grimm." "And I am very, very hungry," Peter stumbled back. "We don't want trouble." Grimm's jaw snapped shut with a crack that echoed across the cove. "Then answer me, boy. Fail, and I'll strip the meat from your bones before your rabbit's glow fades." The crocodile slithered closer, jaws opening wide enough to swallow him whole. Its breath stank of blood and swamp water. "I am always hungry. I must always be fed. The finger I lick will soon turn red." What am I? Peter's mind raced. Behind Grimm's teeth, shadows writhed as though the monster carried the ghosts of his meals. He forced himself to breathe, to think of BB's fire that devoured logs until only ash remained. Fire, he whispered, then stronger. Your fire. Grim froze. The gold in his eyes narrowed to slits. Then he laughed, a low, rolling sound that made the ground tremble. Clever morsel. Run along then, before I change my mind. He slid back into the water, vanishing without a ripple. Peter's chest heaved. Pepper pressed close to his neck, fur damp with fear. That wasn't a riddle, he muttered. That was a threat. They hurried along the bank, but the ground shook again, heavier, deeper. From between two massive pillars of rock, shadow thickened, gathering into a monstrous form. The Minotaur stepped forward, its hooves sparking against stone. Its horns were blackened and sharp, curving like scythes slick with old stains. Its eyes blazed crimson, and each exhale steamed like smoke from a furnace. In its hands gleamed a double-headed axe, its edge jagged as if it had bitten through bone. I am Actodem, guardian of this cove, the beast thundered. The throne is not for children. Leave now, or leave your blood in the dirt. Peter's voice cracked. I can't. Willowbrook needs me. Actodem's laugh shook the cliffs. Then you'll die with bravery. It will season the meat. With a roar, the Minotaur swung. The axe struck the ground where Peter had stood a moment before, shattering stone, sending shards flying like knives. Pepper shrieked, his glow flaring wildly. Peter, you can't fight him! Peter scrambled behind one of the rune-carved pillars, pressing his hand to the glowing symbols etched there. The runes flared in answer, a shock racing up his arm. Actodem bellowed, raising his axe again. No stone, no spell will save you! Peter shouted back, voice breaking but fierce. Strength without wisdom is nothing. You're just a beast swinging at shadows. The runes blazed, and for the first time the Minotaur faltered. Its axe trembled, then lowered. Its eyes dimmed from crimson fire to ember glow. It leaned close, breath hot and foul. Wisdom has spared you, boy, but the throne will not be so kind. The rune archway flared open, revealing the path beyond darker, narrower, alive with whispering mist. Peter staggered forward, Pepper clinging to his shoulder, both trembling. Behind them, Actodem's voice followed like a curse. Every step forward is a step closer to your end. The forest will eat your courage, and when it does, I'll be waiting. Chapter 12. Flight of the Griffin. The forest path climbed higher, twisting along jagged cliffs where the trees grew thin. The air sharpened, carrying the smell of rain and stone. Far below, the forest stretched like a black sea, its canopy shivering under the wind. Peter hugged his jacket close. Feels like we're climbing into the clouds. Pepper flicked his ears nervously. Or into the talons of something that lives in the clouds. A shriek tore through the night high, piercing, like metal dragged across stone. Peter staggered, clapping his hands to his ears. Pepper's glow dimmed, quivering. Out of the clouds swept a massive shadow, wings unfurled, blotting out the moonlight. Feathers black as midnight glistened with streaks of silver, and talons longer than swords carved sparks from the cliffs as it landed. Its beak gleamed, hooked and cruel, and its eyes burned with an otherworldly orange fire. The griffin stared down at them, its breath a hot wind that smelled of storms. Pepper whispered, "Dark breath." The griffin of the skies. The creature's voice rumbled like thunder. You seek the throne. Then prove you can stand against the air itself. It spread its wings, the gust nearly knocking Peter from the cliff. Fly with me, or fall. Before Peter could protest, Dark Breath lunged forward, snatching him up in its talons. Pepper shrieked, glowing brighter as he clung to Peter's shoulder. The griffin launched into the night sky. The world dropped away. The forest became a swirling shadow far beneath them, the moons shimmering on its surface like coins lost in ink. Wind whipped Peter's face, tearing tears from his eyes. He clutched Darkbreath's talon with both hands, heart hammering. "Hold tight!" Pepper shouted, his ears flat, his glow streaking blue in the rushing air. Darkbreath soared higher, then dipped suddenly, twisting between cliffs and rising again in a dizzying arc. Peter cried out, the air stolen from his lungs. It was like riding a storm made flesh. "Why are you doing this?" Peter gasped. The griffin's voice cracked like lightning. "Because the throne is not for those who crawl on the ground. It is for those who dare the heights." Darkbreath dove straight toward the forest canopy. The trees raced up like spears. Peter's stomach flipped. "We're going to crash!" Pepper's glow blazed, illuminating the griffin's eyes. "No! He wants you to trust him. Trust the flight." Peter squeezed his eyes shut and held on. At the last moment, Darkbreath snapped his wings open. The air roared, catching them, lifting them back into the sky. They skimmed the treetops, branches whipping just inches from Peter's boots, before soaring higher than ever. When they leveled out, Peter dared to open his eyes. The forest sprawled beneath them, silvered by the twin moons, beautiful and terrifying all at once. His fear ebbed, replaced by awe. Darkbreath's voice softened, though it still rumbled with storm. "You did not let go. You did not surrender to fear. That is enough." He wheeled once more through the clouds, and then descended, setting Peter and Pepper gently on the cliff where they had begun. Peter's legs shook so hard he nearly fell. Pepper hopped down, shaking himself like he'd just come through rain. Darkbreath folded his wings, his gaze burning into Peter's. "Remember this. The air carries those who dare, but it dashes down those who doubt. The throne will demand the same." With a final shriek, the griffin leapt skyward, vanishing into the clouds. Peter sank to the ground, panting. "I thought he was going to kill us." Pepper's glow steadied. Maybe he could have. But he didn't. He wanted to see if we'd break. Peter stared at the night sky where the griffin had disappeared. "Then we can't break. Not now. Not ever. Together." They stood and pressed on, the echo of Darkbreath's cry lingering in the wind behind them. Chapter 13. The Dark Fairy Rossa. The path wound into a valley where the air grew thick and still. Trees leaned inward, their branches drooping like arms stripped of strength. Strange flowers bloomed here, pale as bone, their petals curling as though they had withered before they could open. Peter shivered. "This place feels wrong." Pepper's whiskers twitched. "That's because it is." The air tastes old, like dust in a coffin. Mist rolled low across the ground, curling around their ankles. At the valley's center, a stone dais jutted from the earth, cracked and half-buried. Upon it stood a figure draped in strips of faded silk, her wings tattered like torn parchment. Her skin was pale, her lips grey, and her eyes glowed faintly violet beneath strands of black hair streaked with silver. She looked both young and ancient, fragile and terrifying. When she moved, the strips of cloth shifted like wrappings on a mummy. "I am Rossa," she said, her voice low and echoing. "The fairy of illusions, the weaver of lies and truths. You've come far, little mortals. But tell me, do you know what's real?" Peter's throat went dry. "We know Willowbrook is in danger. That's real enough." Rossa's smile was thin, brittle. "Is it? Or is it just another dream you cling to? The throne eats dreams, boy. It eats everything." She raised a hand, and the mist surged. The valley shifted around them. Suddenly, Peter wasn't standing beside Pepper, he was back in Willowbrook. His mother calling him from the window, Josie waving, BB scolding Fluffy James for climbing the roof. Peter gasped. "It's home! We're back!" Pepper's glow flickered. "No, Peter. Look closer." The vision warped. The villagers' faces stretched, their eyes hollow, their voices echoing like whispers from a tomb. Josie's smile twisted, her skin grey and cracked, her hands reaching for him with long, skeletal fingers. "Stay with us," the illusion crooned. "Stay forever." Peter stumbled back. "No. You're not real." The vision shattered, melting back into mist. Rossa stood at the dais, her wrappings fluttering like shrouds in the wind. Her laughter was soft but cruel. "You're braver than most," she said. "But every brave heart has cracks. The throne will find yours. When it does, you'll beg for illusions to hide the truth." She drifted closer, her bare feet not touching the ground. Her violet eyes burned into Peter's. "Tell me, boy, which is worse? A lie that comforts or a truth that destroys?" Peter's hands shook, but he raised his chin. "The truth. Because if I face it, I can fight it. A lie just makes me weak." For a moment, silence. Then Ross's expression softened into something almost sad. She stepped back, her wings folding like brittle leaves. "Perhaps you will make it farther than the others," she whispered. "But know this, the throne does not grant. It devours. And when it takes from you, no truth will save you." The mist thinned. The dais cracked with a groan, sinking slowly back into the earth. Rossa's form faded with it, dissolving into strips of cloth that fluttered away like ashes on the wind. Peter exhaled shakily, his knees weak. "She almost had me." Pepper hopped onto his shoulder, his glow steady once more. "Illusions only win if you want to believe them. Remember that together, they walked on, the valley silent behind them." But in the corner of Peter's mind, Rossa's words lingered like a curse. Which is worse, a lie that comforts, or a truth that destroys? Chapter 14. The Serpent Pan. The path narrowed into a ravine where the air grew damp and heavy. The walls dripped with moisture, slick stone glistening under faint moonlight. Strange vines hung like ropes, but when Peter brushed one, it twitched away, not a plant, but a snake. "Lovely," Pepper muttered, his glow flickering nervously. "We're in a snake pit." A low hiss rumbled through the ravine, so deep it shook the stones beneath their feet. Then the ground itself seemed to shift. From the shadows, scales the size of shields slithered across the rock. A massive serpent uncoiled, its body stretching longer than the tallest trees, its skin black with streaks of sickly green. Its eyes glowed yellow, unblinking, and its fangs gleamed like curved daggers. It smiled. A serpent should not smile, but somehow it did. "Welcome, little morsels," the creature hissed, its voice sibilant and smooth. "I am Pan, guardian of the throne's last gate. My duty is to test you. My pleasure is to eat you if you fail." Peter tightened his grip on Pepper. "We've faced riddles, monsters, even a griffin. We'll face you too." Pan's coils tightened, stone grinding beneath his weight. So brave. So foolish. Heroes always taste of pride, a bitter spice, but filling. His tongue flicked out, forked and gleaming. "Tell me, boy, what makes you think you're different from the others who fed my belly?" Peter stood straighter, though his knees shook. "Because I don't fight for myself. I fight for Willowbrook." Pan chuckled, a sound like scales scraping glass. "A noble answer. Nobility is delicious." Still, I'll give you a chance. His body shifted, forming a living wall of scales across the ravine. Pass my riddle, and I'll let you live. Fail, and your rabbit glows no more. Pepper's ears flattened. Always with the riddles? Pan lowered his head, eyes burning. I have no legs but travel far. I slither silent, leaving scars. I shed my skin, yet do not die. What am I? Peter swallowed. The answer seemed obvious, but too obvious. He glanced at Pepper, who nodded slightly. A snake? You're describing yourself. The serpent's grin widened. Correct, but beware. Those who name me often still fall to me. Before Peter could answer, Pan lunged. His massive head slammed into the ground, where Peter had stood a moment earlier, sending shards of stone flying. Peter scrambled to his feet, heart pounding. You said you'd let us pass, he shouted. I lied, Pan hissed, laughter echoing through the ravine. What kind of guardian would I be if I didn't cheat? Pepper's glow flared. Run, Peter. They sprinted down the ravine as Pan's coils smashed into the cliffs, stones tumbling, dust choking the air. The serpent's laughter followed, cruel and mocking. Run, little morsels! Run! The throne will finish what I began. At the ravine's end, an arch of roots burst from the ground, glowing faintly with ancient runes. Peter and Pepper dove through it, just as Pan's head struck the earth behind them, jaws snapping shut on empty air. The serpent hissed one last time, his voice curling like smoke after them. You may escape me, boy, but no one escapes the throne. Chapter 15. Mrs. Beether's Temptation. The forest path widened into a clearing bathed in pale moonlight. At its center, a tall mirror stood, cracked and rimmed in silver ivy. Strange candles burned around it, their flames purple instead of gold. Peter slowed, unease prickling his skin. Why would there be a mirror out here? Pepper sniffed the air. Because nothing good ever comes from mirrors in the middle of the woods. A voice drifted from the shadows, smooth and sweet as honey. Oh, but good things do come from mirrors, especially beauty. From behind the glass stepped Mrs. Beether. She wore a gown of shimmering silk, though the fabric sagged like it was sewn from cobwebs. Her face was painted with charm, lips red as berries, cheeks dusted pink, but her eyes gleamed too brightly, and her smile was too sharp. As she moved, the mirror reflected her not as beautiful, but as withered, her skin cracked like old porcelain. Ah, Peter, my darling boy, Beether crooned. You look tired. All this wandering, this danger, this dirt. Wouldn't you rather rest? Stay here with me, in comfort and safety? Peter frowned. Mrs. Beether? From Willowbrook? She laughed lightly, twirling a strand of her silken hair. The very same, though the forest has made me more radiant. She leaned closer, her perfume cloying and sweet. And I could make you radiant too. Heroes are so overrated. Why fight banshees when you could be adored, admired, worshipped? Pepper muttered. She sounds like Beatha, all right. But 10 times worse, Beether pouted, hearing him. Oh, glowing rabbit, don't be jealous. There's a place for you too, a lovely little cage made of crystal, where everyone could marvel at you. Imagine a rabbit lantern for all eternity. Pepper squeaked, fur bristling. No, thank you. Peter shook his head. You're not really Mrs. Beether. She might be vain, but she isn't cruel. The mirror flickered. For a moment, Beether's reflection twisted, showing her face grey and hollow, her eyes sunken, her gown tattered to rags. She gasped and covered it quickly with a wave of her hand. Oh, pay no attention to that. It's just a trick of the light. I am flawless. She pressed closer, her voice lower now, tempting. "Stay, Peter. Forget the throne, forget the Banshee. Stay with me, and I'll give you anything you want, warmth, safety, even Josie back at your side." Peter's heart twisted, but he forced himself to step back. "That's not real. That's what the throne wants to tempt me with lies." The mirror cracked louder, a jagged line splitting it down the center. Beatha hissed, her perfect smile warping into something jagged. "Ungrateful boy. You'll regret this when the throne swallows you whole." The candles guttered out. The mirror shattered into shards that fell silently into the mist, leaving only the clearing's silence. Beatha was gone. Peter let out a shaky breath. "She almost fooled me." Pepper hopped onto his shoulder, still puffed up. "Almost fooled me too. I mean, who wouldn't want to be admired forever? But a crystal cage? No thanks." Peter managed a laugh, though uneasily. "I'll take danger over a cage any day." As they walked on, Pepper added, "Still, you've got to admit, she's got a talent for drama." Peter snorted. "She'd fit right in with the gremlins." Together, they stepped back into the shadows of the forest, leaving the broken mirror behind. Chapter 16. Secrets from the Past. The deeper they walked, the more the forest seemed to rot around them. Trees grew black and hollow, their trunks gaping like mouths. Vines hung limp, their leaves brittle, and the air itself felt heavier, thick with the smell of damp stone and something sour, like old breath. At last, the path ended at a ruin. It hunched in the darkness, like a broken crown, arches half buried in moss, walls cracked and leaning, stone pillars clawing upward as though trying to escape the earth. Peter stopped, his chest tight. "What is this place?" Pepper hopped onto a stone, his glow flickering over the carvings etched deep into its surface. "Older than Willowbrook. Older than the throne, maybe. Look." The glow revealed spirals cut into the walls, symbols looping back on themselves. Between them were figures, men, women, children, their faces carved with wide eyes. Some raised their arms in joy, others cowered as shadows closed around them. The details were so sharp that Peter swore the eyes were following him. He traced a cracked carving. The shape was a woman cloaked in mist, her mouth open in a scream. "The Banshee," he whispered. Pepper twitched his ears. "Not just her." This place tells a story together. They followed the carvings around the ruin. First, they showed a thriving village. Farmers carrying baskets, children playing under banners, musicians with flutes and drums. Then came the mist rolling in like a tide, curling around the villagers' legs. Their eyes turned hollow, their mouths stretched in silent cries. Some fell. Some walked willingly into the dark. The final carving showed the throne itself, tall and jagged, draped in the mist. A single figure knelt before it, broken, her face lost to shadow. Peter's stomach churned. It's Willowbrook. It's already happened before a chill brushed the back of his neck. At first, he thought it was the wind, but then he heard it. A faint wail, soft as a sigh, yet too long, too mournful to be natural. Pepper's fur stood on end. "She's here." The wail twisted into whispers, curling through the ruins like smoke. Peter froze as words slithered into his ears, his mother's voice, his grandfather's laugh, even Josie's giggle. All wrong. All stretched thin and echoing. His grip tightened on his satchel. "Stop it! You're not them!" The shadows along the walls shifted. For a heartbeat, Peter saw shapes within them, faces pressing against the stone, mouths open in silent screams. Then the mist retreated, leaving the ruins silent again. At the center of the crumbling floor stood a pedestal, cracked but intact. Something glinted inside, a shard of glass, faintly glowing, no bigger than Peter's palm. He reached for it. The moment his fingers touched it, cold shot through him, crawling up his arm like ice water. The shard was heavier than it looked, and darker, as though it carried its own shadow. "What is it?" Peter asked, his voice unsteady. Pepper's glow dimmed as he studied it. A shard of her mirror, the one she bound herself to when the throne rejected her. If she ever regains it? His voice dropped, barely a whisper. She won't just haunt Willowbrook. She'll consume it. Peter stuffed the shard into his satchel, forcing his hands to stop shaking. Then we can't let her have it. The wail rose again, louder now, rattling the walls, knocking dust from the carvings. One pillar split with a crack. Peter spun, but the ruin was empty, no figure, no face, only mist gathering in the corners. Pepper leapt onto his shoulder, his glow flaring. She knows we took it. And she's coming. Peter's heart pounded, but he forced his chin up. Good. Let her come. I'll be ready. As they stepped out of the ruins, the wail followed longer, sharper, no longer just mournful, but hungry. It clung to the trees as they left, a sound that promised their next meeting would not be from the shadows. Chapter 17. The Throne of the Ancient One. The plateau opened wide under the twin moons. At its center rose the throne of the Ancient One, carved from black obsidian streaked with silver veins, its back tall as a tower. Runes shimmered faintly along its arms, pulsing as though with a heartbeat. Unlike the horrors of the forest, the throne did not feel cruel. It felt watchful, patient, alive. Peter's chest tightened. It's waiting for me. On the seat lay a letter. His heart jolted Josie's handwriting. Dearest Peter, if you are reading this, then you have reached the throne. There is truth you must know. Our father was not lost by accident. His name was Alaric, and he was not only of Willowbrook. He was born of a hidden line, a half-blood son of the Ancient One, chosen to protect the Enchanted Forest. The throne was his gift, his burden, his right. But when the whispering veil rose, Father fought to protect us. He battled the mist until it could not defeat him, so it imprisoned him instead. Through a portal of shadow, it dragged him into a prison realm, sealing him away. That is why the throne calls to you, Peter. You are his son. His blood lives in you. The throne does not hunger, like the veil it waits for its guardian. It is offering you the mantle that once belonged to Father, protector of the Enchanted Forest, heir of the ancient line. If you sit upon it, you will not just be my brother. You will be the prince of the Enchanted Forest. I believe you can carry what Father could not. With all my love. Josie Peter's hands shook as he lowered the letter. His father, Alaric. Not vanished, not weak, but a warrior, still trapped somewhere in the mist's prison. And now the throne had chosen him. Pepper's glow flickered. Peter, this isn't just about Willowbrook anymore. The throne is good. It wants a guardian again. It wants you. The runes brightened as Peter stepped closer. For a moment, he saw a vision. Alaric, tall and fierce, his eyes the same as Peter's. Bound in chains of mist, fighting still within the prison realm. Peter's heart ached. Father? The throne whispered, not in words, but in feeling. Sit and protect them all. Claim your right. Continue what was lost. Peter reached out. His fingers brushed the cold stone of the armrest. He felt the weight of it, the strength of it, and the responsibility that came with it. For a heartbeat, he almost sat. But then the wind shifted. The mist that had lingered at the edges of the plateau thickened, curling upward like smoke. and from it came a wail that froze Peter's blood. The Banshee burst forth, her scream cracking the stones, her eyes blazing. "You will not take the throne, boy," she shrieked. "Your father defied me and was imprisoned. You will kneel, or you will follow him into the void." The throne's runes blazed brighter, defying her cry, but the mist surged forward, clawing toward Peter and Pepper, ready to swallow them whole. Peter gripped Josie's letter, heart hammering. Father didn't kneel. And neither will I. If the throne wants me, it will have to wait until the Banshee is defeated. The Banshee's scream rose higher, summoning the mist into a storm. The battle had begun. Chapter 18. The Banshee's Wrath. The plateau shook as the Banshee's scream split the night. Stones cracked, runes flared, and the mist surged like a storm given flesh. Peter staggered back, hands over his ears, his heart thundering in his chest. Pepper's glow flared blue, struggling to hold back the shadows. "Peter, stay close to the throne." The Banshee drifted forward, her body swirling with the mist. Her hair whipped like black fire, her eyes burning with violet fury. Her mouth stretched wide, releasing another wail that clawed at the air, stripping leaves from trees miles away. "You dare stand where your father fell," she shrieked, her voice both storm and sorrow. "Alaric resisted me, and the whispering veil dragged him screaming into the prison realm. You will not escape so easily, boy. You will kneel or follow him into eternal silence." Peter's grip tightened on Josie's letter. "You'll never have me. And you'll never have Willowbrook." The Banshee laughed, a hollow sound that rattled the bones of the earth. "Brave words for a child. Do you think the throne will save you? It is mine to corrupt. Your blood only makes you sweeter." The mist surged, striking like a serpent. Peter dove aside, the ground where he'd stood exploding in a spray of stone. Pepper leapt high, his glow bursting into a shield of light that pushed the mist back for a heartbeat before it roared in again. "Pepper," Peter cried. "I'm fine," Pepper shouted, though his glow flickered. "But this thing wants me dimmed, Peter. The mist feeds on light." The Banshee's voice slithered through the storm. "Yes, the rabbit. A spark I long to snuff out. When your light dies, boy, your courage will die with it." Her laugh became another wail, and the sound hit Peter like a hammer. He fell to his knees, clutching his ears. In the corner of his vision, he saw her shape split and reform 3 figures, then 5, then 1. Again, illusions twisting around her like smoke. "Peter!" Pepper shouted. "Don't listen, don't look. She's trying to blind you with fear." Peter forced himself to his feet. His father's face flashed in his mind, Alaric, bound in chains of mist. He clenched his fists. "I won't let you keep him. And I won't let you take me." The runes on the throne flared in answer, silver light cutting through the swirling darkness. The Banshee hissed, recoiling for the first time. "You are your father's son," she spat, "and you will share his fate." The mist gathered above her, forming jagged claws of shadow, ready to strike. Pepper leapt to Peter's shoulder, his glow brightening with every ounce of strength he had. "Peter, the throne isn't against you, it's with you. Use it." Peter turned, pressing one hand against the throne's arm. Power surged up his arm like fire and ice together. For a heartbeat, he felt the Ancient One's presence vast, timeless, steady. The mist recoiled, shrieking. The Banshee wailed louder, her voice twisting into rage. "You cannot resist me. Even your father fell." Peter's voice rang out, steadier than he felt. "He didn't fall. He fought you, and now so will I." The battle was no longer the thrones or the banshees. It was his. Chapter 19. The Whispering Veil, the Dark Mist Revealed. The storm of shadows coiled tighter, swallowing the moons. From the mist, Celoria rose, her figure towering, her eyes violet fire. Her voice split the night. "You think you fight a spirit, boy? Number. You fight an eternity. I am Celoria, first voice of the Whispering Veil. And you should know the truth before it ends you." The mist spun into visions. Peter saw the tenebrous rift, once alive, now scarred and broken. At its heart stood a man in black robes, chanting spells that warped the air. "The Chronicle Master," Celoria whispered, "born of the rift, cursed with hunger for forbidden knowledge." He meddled in shadow, tore the fabric between realms, and reached where no mortal should. The portal he opened split wide, jagged as shattered glass. Beyond it screamed a wasteland of endless blizzards and black frost, the frostbane expanse. And from it poured the Whispering Veil, a mist alive, older than stars, hungering for warmth and life. It poured into the rift, Celoria hissed. It devoured its people. The Chronicle Master thought he had summoned a servant, but the veil bound him as its prophet, its chained voice. The rift was the first to fall. The vision twisted. A silver wolf stood proud, then shadows slithered through his veins. His eyes turned crimson. Pepper gasped. "Ray." "Yes," Celoria crooned. "The wolf guardian of your enchanted forest." The veil broke him, turned his loyalty into rage. Ro's fall was its triumph, proof that even the strongest guardians can rot. Another vision swirled. Willowbrook village, lanterns burning, villagers huddled, children staring at strange glowing cracks in the forest. In Willowbrook Adventure, Book 2, your people stumbled upon the portals the wounds left behind when the Chronicle Master opened the way. Through them, the veil slithered nearer, biding its time. The vision deepened, becoming tunnels carved in stone. Peter saw walls etched with runes glowing faintly, warnings of war, betrayal, and corruption. "And in secrets beneath the village," Celoria said, her voice curling with pride, "the earth itself remembered. The runes told of the veil's hunger, of the shadow war that scarred your realms. Still you did not listen. Still you let the forest sleep while the darkness gathered." The visions faded, and Celoria's face filled the mist. "Your father, Alaric, was the only one who stood against it. He carried the blood of the Ancient One. He fought, and for a time he even wounded the veil." The mist swirled into a final vision, Alaric roaring, blade blazing, cutting through tendrils of frost until chains of black mist coiled around him and dragged him into a void of silence. "But he was bound," Celoria hissed, "dragged into the prison realm between Rift and Frostbane. He still fights there, though his strength wanes with every breath." Peter's chest ached. "Then I'll free him. I'll finish what he started." Celoria's smile widened, cruel and cold. "No, boy. You are the end. Alaric's blood makes you the key. Through you, the veil will tear Frostbane open and drown every realm in eternal silence." Pepper's glow flared. "Not while we're still here!" Celoria's scream split the night. The mist surged like a tidal wave, frost spreading across the plateau. The truth had been spoken. Now came the reckoning. Chapter 20. The Final Stand. The plateau shook beneath the storm. The Whispering Veil towered above, a mass of frost and shadow, its whispers crawling into Peter's ears. "We are eternal. We are silence." "You will kneel," Celoria shrieked, her form twisting with fury. "Your blood is the key, boy. Alaric's son will finish what began in the rift." The veil surged, tendrils of black frost lashing out. Peter stumbled, nearly dragged to his knees, but the throne's silver runes flared, casting back the worst of the storm. Pepper darted forward, his glow flickering. "Peter, the throne's power is with you, but it can't choose for you. You have to stand." Peter clenched Josie's letter to his chest, his voice raw. "I'm not ready to take the throne, but I won't let the Veil win. Not while I can fight." The whispering Veil roared, its voice shaking the cliffs. "Then you will die." The mist surged again, striking with claws of shadow. Pepper leapt high, his fur blazing blue, brighter than Peter had ever seen. He landed between Peter and the storm, his body trembling with strain. "Pepper, no!" Peter cried. The rabbit's glow burst into a searing wave, slamming into the veil. For a heartbeat, the storm faltered, Celoria screaming as her form unraveled in the light. Pepper's voice rang out, clear and fierce. "You won't take him! You won't take Willowbrook!" The light tore through the mist, driving it back toward the sky, back toward Frostbane. The veil howled, its whispers twisting into rage. But Pepper's body collapsed, his glow shattering into sparks. "Pepper!" Peter dropped to his knees, catching him in his arms. The rabbit's breathing was shallow, his blue fur dimming. "Peter." Pepper's voice was soft now, almost a whisper. "Don't cry. I was born for this, to guide you here, to protect you. And I'd do it again." Tears streamed down Peter's face. "No! Stay with me, please. I need you." Pepper's eyes glowed faintly one last time. "You don't need me." "You've always been stronger than you know." His glow faded completely. His body grew still. Peter held him close, sobbing, as the last of the mist drifted away into the night. The veil was not gone, only driven back, but it had cost them everything. The throne loomed silently behind him, its runes glowing like watchful eyes. But Peter turned away, clutching Pepper's body in his arms. "I won't sit," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Not yet. I won't leave him here. I won't be like father. I'll bring him home." And with that, Peter rose, carrying Pepper down the mountain, leaving the throne waiting in silence. Chapter 21. The Burial of a Friend. The journey back to Willowbrook was the longest Peter had ever walked. The forest was silent, as if mourning with him. No owls hooted, no leaves rustled. The night was still and heavy, the air cold against his tear-streaked cheeks. In his arms lay Pepper, his fur no longer glowing, his body light and fragile. Peter held him close, afraid that if he let go, even for a moment, the world would steal him away. At the edge of the village, lanterns still burned. A few villagers stirred when they saw him, their faces filling with shock and sorrow as they realized who he carried. "Pepper," whispered Mrs. Smelly, her hands flying to her mouth. Mr. Grumpy looked away, his usual muttering silenced. Even Wolfed, the drunkard, stood straighter, his eyes shining with unexpected tears. Peter said nothing. He just kept walking, step by step, until he reached the square. There, beneath the great oak tree where he and Josie once played, he knelt and laid Pepper down gently. Lisa, his mother, rushed to him, falling to her knees. Her hand went to Pepper's still fur, her eyes filling with grief. "Oh, Peter." Peter buried his face in her shoulder. "He's gone, Mum. He saved me, and he's gone." By dawn, the whole village gathered. Some brought flowers, others candles, and still others came simply to stand in silence. They had all known Pepper not just as a magical rabbit, but as part of their family. His laughter, his glow, his courage had touched every heart in Willowbrook. Mr. Inwood, The tavern keeper placed a mug of sweet cider beside Pepper. "For the bravest soul I ever knew." Mrs. Butterpond wept openly, clutching her husband's arm. He was light itself, and now the forest feels darker without him. Even BB, Peter's eccentric grandmother, who rarely showed sorrow, placed her hand on Pepper's small body and whispered, "May the stars keep you, little one." Peter stood apart, silent. He felt hollow, as though the light Pepper carried had been torn out of him too. Josie's letter was still clutched in his hand, stained now with dirt and tears. When Elder Samuel stepped forward, his voice was solemn. "We bury not just a friend, but a guardian. Pepper was more than we deserved, yet he gave us everything. Let us honor him not with despair, but with gratitude." The villagers dug a grave at the base of the great oak, the earth soft from the night's rain. Peter placed Pepper inside, wrapping him gently in a cloth stitched by Marielle the seamstress. On top, he laid a single blue feather from Pepper's amulet, a glowless but precious reminder of what he had been. The earth was returned, and flowers placed atop the mound. A stone marker was set, carved with simple words: "Pepper, guardian of Willowbrook. Light in the dark." That night, the village held a vigil. Lanterns lined the square, casting a warm glow, though Peter felt no warmth inside. He sat alone beneath the oak, staring at Pepper's grave, while the others drifted away one by one. Lisa sat beside him quietly, placing an arm around his shoulders. "He loved you, Peter. More than anything. That's why he gave everything." Peter's voice cracked. "I wasn't strong enough. If I had taken the throne, maybe he'd still—" "No," Lisa interrupted softly but firmly. "The throne will be there when you're ready. Pepper made his choice because he believed in you, not in a crown. Don't let that belief go to waste." Peter wiped his eyes, staring at the grave until the stars blurred. "I'll find a way to stop the Whispering Veil. I'll free Father, and I'll make Pepper proud." From somewhere deep in the forest, the wind carried a faint sound, soft, almost like a laugh. For a moment, Peter swore he heard Pepper's voice. "You will, Peter. You already have." The boy smiled through his tears, clutching Josie's letter close. He rose to his feet, the weight of grief still heavy, but no longer crushing. Tomorrow, Willowbrook would wake again, and so would he. Chapter 22. The Whispering Veil's Trick. The days after Pepper's burial were heavy with silence. Willowbrook moved slowly, as though afraid to disturb the weight of grief. Children placed flowers at the base of the great oak. Lanterns glowed each night, a vigil for the guardian they had lost. Peter lingered by the grave every evening, speaking to Pepper as if he could still hear. "I'll fight on," he whispered. "For you. For Father. For everyone." The villagers tried to comfort him. Lisa often sat by his side, her hand steady on his shoulder. Elder Samuel assured the people that the mist had been driven back, that the veil had returned to its frozen prison in Frostbane. For a time, they believed it. For a time, peace returned. But peace was a lie. The night was still when it happened. The lantern flames around the oak tree flickered, then dimmed, as though something unseen had drawn the breath from the air. A chill swept the square, colder than winter, sharper than ice. Peter's head snapped up. His heart pounded. No, it can't be. A wail shattered the silence. The villagers screamed as Celoria's voice tore through the night, her form rising from the mist like a shadow given flesh. "Fools! Did you think eternity could be banished so easily?" The Whispering Veil never left. We were waiting, watching. The mist surged through the village, swallowing the streets. Windows cracked, doors splintered, animals bolted in panic. The villagers huddled in terror. But Celoria drifted toward the oak tree, her violet eyes locked on Pepper's grave. Peter ran forward, blocking her path. "You won't touch him!" Celoria's laughter was cruel, echoing like ice breaking on a lake. "He touched eternity when he burned his light against us. Did you truly think the veil would let such a spark slip away?" The ground cracked. Mist poured into the soil, curling like fingers around Pepper's resting place. The earth trembled, the grave split, and Pepper's body rose, wrapped in black frost. "No!" Peter screamed. He lunged, but tendrils of mist struck him back against the oak. Before the villagers' horrified eyes, Pepper's blue fur darkened to black. His silver-tipped ears froze to shards of ice. His golden amulet shattered, scattering pieces across the ground. His eyes opened glowing red, empty of warmth. The whispering veil roared, its voice crawling across every wall, every ear. "Behold, Black Pepper, our harbinger." Peter's chest broke with pain. "Pepper, fight it. Don't let them take you." For a heartbeat, the rabbit's body twitched, as though something inside resisted. But the mist coiled tighter, smothering the last spark of blue. Celoria's smile widened. "He's mine now. Your village may cower behind its oak and its prayers, but your heart belongs to the veil, and soon, so will you." The villagers wept, some falling to their knees, others clutching their children. Peter pushed himself up, fists shaking. "I'll get him back." "I swear it." Celoria's laughter rang as the mist swirled around her. The veil twisted into a vortex of frost and shadow, dragging her and Black Pepper into the sky. In moments, they were gone, leaving only silence and the broken grave behind. Peter fell to his knees, clutching the fragments of Pepper's amulet. His tears fell hard onto the soil. "This isn't over," he whispered. "I'll find you, Pepper. No matter what they've done, I'll bring you home." The oak tree stood silent, its lanterns gutted out. The whispering veil had played its trick, and now the war for Willowbrook had only begun. Chapter 23. Shadows on the Horizon. The village of Willowbrook was quiet in the days that followed Celoria's attack. The oak tree stood bare and solemn, its lanterns long extinguished. The frost that had scarred the streets lingered like a wound that would not heal. Peter walked among his people, but everywhere he looked, he saw fear. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Farmers refused to work beyond the village's edge. Even Mr. Grumpy, once so loud and bitter, muttered only in hushed tones, his eyes never leaving the forest. They had survived, yes, but hope felt thin. Every evening, Peter returned to the oak tree. He knelt by the broken soil where Pepper's grave had once been, his hands gripping the shattered pieces of the amulet. Its fragments caught the moonlight, but no warmth came from them. Lisa came often, her hand on his shoulder. "The villagers look to you now, Peter. They saw what you did. They saw you stand against the veil. I didn't win," Peter whispered. His voice cracked. "I couldn't save him." Lisa's eyes filled with sorrow, but she squeezed his shoulder firmly. "He gave his life because he believed you would finish the fight. Don't let his faith fade." That night, Willowbrook gathered in silence at the square. They did not speak of victory, only of survival. Elder Samuel raised his lantern, his voice steady, though his hands shook. "We bury Pepper's memory not in despair, but in gratitude. He gave us light, now it is our turn to carry it." The villagers lifted their lanterns one by one. 100 flames glowed, pushing back the shadows that pressed against the edges of the forest. Yet Peter could not shake the feeling that it was not enough. He stood apart from them, his eyes drawn to the horizon where the throne of the Ancient One glimmered faintly in the night. Its runes pulsed, patient and steady, waiting for him. Josie's letter burned in his pocket, its words echoing endlessly in his mind. You are to take the throne, to sit upon it and accept your place as Prince of the Enchanted Realm. Peter clenched his fists. Not yet. I'm not ready. If I sit, I'll be bound, like father. And I can't leave them behind. The throne glimmered brighter, almost in answer, but he turned his back. For now, he would remain only Peter, not prince, not heir. Not yet. Sleep came late, and when it did, it was restless. In the dead of night, a whisper drifted through his window, soft as frost on glass. We have your guardian. We have your heart. Come to us, boy, if you dare. Peter's eyes snapped open. He sat upright, fists clenched, breath ragged. The voice had been Saloria's, but deeper, layered with the veil itself. He rushed to the window. The sky above the forest rippled faintly, as though a curtain of frost and shadow had been drawn across it. For a moment, he thought he saw Pepper's form in the mist, black fur, red eyes, his body shackled in frost. Then it vanished. Tears burned Peter's eyes. He gripped Josie's letter tight. I'll find you, Pepper. No matter where the veil has taken you, I'll bring you home. I swear it. The wind howled through the trees, carrying laughter that was not laughter, a promise that the whispering veil was not finished. Peter turned from the window, fire burning through his grief. The throne would wait. The village would wait. But he would not. The battle for Willowbrook was over. The war for Pepper had just begun. The end. And so, the storm has passed. The night is calm once more, and the echoes of the Banshee's cry fade into memory. Through courage, kindness, and the bond of friendship, Peter and Pepper have faced the darkness, and proven that even in the coldest shadow, the light of hope never truly dies. But every story is only the beginning of another. Whispers still drift through the Enchanted Forest, and somewhere beyond the stars, a new adventure waits to be told. Thank you for joining me, Jane, for this magical chapter of the Chronicles of Mythical Realms. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and remember, magic is never far away. Good night, adventurer. Until our next story.